Adam,
Sasha, how are you?
well, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
I had about 10 minutes to see you uh, making your hair and preparing for the broadcast. You look wonderful.
Thank you very much. Likewise. Yeah, I was a little bit disheveled, so want to look
Oh,
as
oh, oh,
presentable as possible.
I see. So let's see, we are sort of broadcasting, or we are in charge of the program, or we are guests, or who are we?
I think we're in charge of the program, and it's about time. I
Yeah,
think.
okay. Listen, I have one interesting question. Um, Obviously, the word Palestina, it sounds to me very Latin in its origin, right? And if you
Yes.
go into history, actually, that was invented by Romans when they took over the Israel, which was at that time, I don't even remember what was the name of Israel. Probably Israel or maybe something else, or the Judean state, Judea maybe. So they wanted to not only eliminate all the Jews from that territory, but they wanted to make sure that anything that would remind future generations about Jews or so on would be completely extinguished. So therefore, they invented the name Palestina, and it's a very musical name, by the way.
Yes.
Palestina, it's very Latin in its nature. So why today's Italians are not pretending on that land? That would be very logical. Roman had it, so Italians could just as well say, "Listen, we will try to make sure that it's all fair, that all people will be happy. We'll provide everybody." Pizza six times a week. Why not?
Pasta and pizza. Well, I
Of
think
course.
that may have been a good idea because what we've got on our hands now is a real mess and real tragedy. It's horrible.
Not only that, there is no clear way out of it, too.
Well, when I look at the situation, I'm not an expert on Middle East um, policy, but number one, what Hamas did, in my view, was just despicable, and the loss of life was horrific,
Not
innocent.
only loss of, but also how those lives were taken. That's just almost as important.
That's true, and they were taken in ways that I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine the horror and the suffering those poor people went through. Um, and I think that anybody who fails to condemn Hamas for that type of barbarism and brutality really it's a real shame, and we're seeing this at some of our American universities and with our politicians. On a to make a broader point, the situation between Israel and the Palestinians has been so complicated for so long, and it doesn't seem like there is a way out. The only way I think that there's going to be a way out is if there's a Palestinian state. But I don't see how that's going to happen right now based on what Hamas just did. I think the situation is going to deteriorate and we're going to get more of the same for years to come.
Adam, but if you look at the history, at least European history, which is fairly close to that region, the real peace and long one was when one side would decisively win against the other side. If you take Second World War, of course, right?
Right.
Now, how often France was fighting Germany throughout centuries or so on. But then eventually one side had to take decisively. That didn't happen in the First World War because basically there was a stalemate. And all of a sudden, when America entered the war, all of a sudden Germans they one day they discovered all of a sudden they lost the war. They couldn't believe that. They thought it's incredible. Deceives them from communists or from whoever. They just couldn't believe that they lost the war. So here comes Second World War, and the France was taken over, except the small um, portion of France controlled by General de Gaulle, and but most of the France was taken over by Germans. So on a day when German capitulated to all, so there were America, of course, United States, Russia, Soviet Union at the time, England, and then there was France. And General Cato says, how come? We lost to France as well?
Yeah.
Believes that. But apparently, okay, that was decided that France will celebrate that as well.
I think part of the problem, I think you're right. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a very decisive victory for Israel. And I think part of it, look, I understand that both sides are culpable historically in some respects for failing to come to a peaceful solution. But Hamas is impossible to compromise with. We have tried. In 1996, Bill Clinton had an agreement between Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat that they rejected. We tried again in 2000.
Sorry, Adam, Yitzhak Rabin was killed in 1995. So it probably was a year earlier.
I'm sorry, it was 94. I apologize. Yeah. But when they shook hands, I'll never forget the picture with Bill Clinton with them, at the White House. They still then So how can you negotiate with an organization that is dedicated to not recognizing Israel, yet demands a Palestinian state and engages in atrocities so horrible that people burn alive? Hamas is going down.
I have difficulty hearing you. Nick, what's on your hand? Nick? What's happening?
And I didn't even get her name. Like boarding on that flight.
Could you take down your noise, please? Could you take down the noise on your end? Okay, thank you. Nick, there is still a noise.
And I showed her the silver, like I said, like I had no time. I stepped inside, like without even an issue. And I'm like, just.
Okay, the noise.
Did you hear anything I said? Probably not, huh?
Some of it, yes, but not all.
Well, to summarize, what I was saying was that in 94 and 2000, we had fair agreements with the Palestinians, or the Israelis did, and they rejected them. And what I was saying was, how can you negotiate with an organization that wants to destroy Israel, that doesn't compromise, that gave away 2 great deals, and that now is burning babies alive, decapitating people, and essentially engaging in some of the worst atrocities I've seen in my lifetime, or probably anybody's lifetime? I think Hamas is going down. I think they'll be destroyed. And I think that is what's ultimately going to happen.
You see, since the Holocaust, Israel or Jews or both never lost so many people in one day as on October 7th. Holocaust was 70 some years ago. So this is how significant is what's happened on.
Yeah, it's like their 9/11. And one thing that sticks in my mind is that there was a family of 5, a husband and wife and their 3 children. They died holding each other, embracing each other, knowing they were going to die. And it just makes me sick to think that human beings would be capable of doing that to other human beings. I don't know if these people in Hamas are, I don't know if they're not intellectually developed. I don't know if they're not evolved, but they are acting like animals.
Absolutely. And I would like to turn your attention to, I remember in 90s, if I'm correct, about the same time, they came 2 very important books. One was Fukuyama, The End of History, and one was Huntington, The Clash of Civilizations. They are very contradictory books, and if one is right, then the other one is wrong. And what's happened today, we see very clearly who was right and who was wrong. The Fukuyama vision of united world, no borders, globalism, and everybody is happy, I think this has been soundly defeated by certain actors. I don't want to say names of those actors, because then you will ask me apologize to some of those actors. So I'm not going to do that. If you try to guess yourself. But Huntington's idea, The Clash of Civilization, I read this book. Actually, I read it once in English and once in Russian. I wanted to check how well it was translated and whether in translations they didn't interchange some of the subject and versions or so on. That was fairly well translated, but it was many, many years ago. If Russians today would translate it, we would definitely do a lot of editing and a lot of stuff. If you see, I have even better exemption. You're too young to remember the movie of 1962. Do you know who is Sophie Loren?
Yes.
Okay. Sophie Loren won her first Oscar for 1962 movie by the name Chochara. I saw this movie probably 4 or 5 times. She's brilliant. She always was brilliant, so there's nothing new about that. But you cannot find this movie, or you will find it probably with great difficulties. Why? Because today this movie is 100% politically incorrect and would upset a lot of people. I'll tell you in 2 minutes what it's all about. The end of Second World War, probably in 1944, where Americans are already taking over Italy. She lives with her daughter, who is a teenager, in Rome. She has a small business like shop or something. And then it's clear that there will be a lot of fights on the streets of Rome. So she decided to leave to some friends in a country. So she took her daughter and they're going to a small village, not too far from Rome. There are different peoples. There are Italians mostly. There is one German who is hiding from fascists. Now she came with her daughter. So it's kind of very interesting community. And they're spending a lot of time together and they're trying to understand each other and talk about their life experience and so on. So it's very, very interesting theme. So finally, the word is that the Germans are all out of Rome, and so now they can come back to the city. So she's walking by with her daughter, and here she hears a noise. There are soldiers are coming on jeeps. So she's assuming that they're obviously Americans, maybe French, maybe some kind of a friendly. Now, all of a sudden, they see that they have some funny clothes and they look unlike Europeans. Apparently, it was a foreign legion of France, and most of these people on jeeps, they were Moroccans, Tunisians, and these people from Africa. So at night, finally, they found some church they wanted to spend the night and then continue. These people stormed into the church and horribly raped both of them. And the daughter couldn't even talk for the next week or so. And Sophia, well, not Sophia, Chochara, but of course Sophie Loren, she played marvelous in this movies, and she's got her first Oscar for that. Now, what I read behind the lines in this movie. So here are Italians, here are Germans, there were some couple of French people. Those people, they were supposed to be fighting each other because Germany was fighting French, and French were against Italy at the time, and Italy was about to switch sides. No, they were talking about poetry, they were talking about music, they were talking about all kind of different things, because they, although different nationalities, but they belong to the same civilization. So they could easily converse, understand each other, so on. Here comes the people who are supposed to be on your side. They're your friends. They came to liberate you. But they are different civilization. This is what Huntington explains. Civilizations, they can coexist. Doesn't mean that one civilization necessarily have to win and destroy the other civilization. No, they can coexist. But don't try to mingle them, because this is one thing and this is the other thing. What works for this type of civilization may not work for us. It's just American experience in Iraq, in Afghanistan, Vietnam. You can go for the next 15 minutes. It just doesn't work. It's a different civilization. Leave it alone. Make sure that they cannot harm you, as it happened to 9/11, as it happened now in Israel. But in what's happened in Israel on October 7th, I'm afraid that there is not enough space in that region for two civilizations. The one civilization became very aggressive towards another one. And they are declaring that it's not a group of fanatics who did that. Because Hamas, remember, unlike ISIS, Hamas is a government of the Gaza. It's a government of Gaza. So you cannot avoid doing anything in that region without negotiating with Hamas, which is lawful representatives of Gaza. But how you negotiate with the people like Hamas then?
This is why it's going to be so difficult for there to be peace. It's one thing to say that different people of different backgrounds can coexist, and the diversity they bring is a positive thing. But for that to work, they have to share a common set of underlying values. They have to share a common set of beliefs that unite them beyond their race, beyond their ethnicity. When that doesn't happen, there's peace is not possible. It's kind of like when we went into Iraq. Well, of course, we weren't going to bring democracy to Iraq. They're very different. What you do see, though, in places like Finland, I mean, a more homogenous society that shares a common set of values is one of the happiest places on the planet. I'm not saying, like you said, people can't coexist, but it's on the condition that they share common values. And too often, that's not the case. And it's particularly not the case with Israel and Hamas, because Hamas as a government, as an elected government, is dedicated to the destruction of Israel, and to doing so by means so horrific that it goes beyond any imagination to think what they did, how those people suffered, and what it will ultimately do to their fate, which I think is going to be extinction. Or, yeah.
Actually, interestingly, coming back to Palestina, I've heard the program, but there was one imam from, he's now in Jordan, and he addressed Muslims in Jordan, and he said, have you ever read Quran? If you did, have you ever seen a word Palestina in Quran or Palestinians? Under what premises you are saying that this is your land, that's where you have to live, or so on? Quran doesn't say so. Furthermore, it confirms that the land was given to Jews, and Jews always lived on that land, and they have to rule that land. If you want to live together with Jews, as many of Arabs are doing, in Israel, about 2 million Arab citizens. They have Israeli citizenship. They're working. They can vote. In the Parliament of Israel, Knesset, there is a very strong representation of Arabs. There were a lot of, there are some other type of Muslims, like, for example, Bedouins, Druze. They are all enlisting in Israeli army to fight for Israel, believe it or not. So I'm not trying to say that all Muslims or all Arabs are bad people and they should be eliminated. So I'm not saying that. Apparently, Israel offered all Jews who want to stay in Israel, they offered them the citizenship, all the rights. They have medicine. They have absolutely the same rights as Jews of Israel have. So,
yeah, I agree with you, and I think one of the questions I have is, what is Hamas's end game? What did they think they were going to accomplish by doing this, by provoking Israel? Because there's no chance that they have to win a war against Israel. And when you talk about civilizations, you're talking about a civilization that represses women terribly, that is so discriminatory, so barbaric, that to have peace with them would be the equivalent of saying that a woman can have a happy marriage with someone who abuses her physically on a daily basis. It's just not going to work. So what's the answer then? Well, it could be a separate Palestinian state. I don't see that happening. I think what it's going to be is the decimation of Hamas.
Yeah, that's probably the most likely outcome. Of course, the aim of Hamas was to steer public opinion heavily in the favor of Hamas and Palestinians and Arabs and Muslims and so on. And look at what's happening on campuses. You know what's happened in Harvard when there was
Harvard, Hunter College. And you know why it's happening? It's happening because these students, these young people, are woefully ignorant. They are being taught by professors who feed them ideology from one perspective, often misinformation about that ideology.
Agreed.
And it's a real shame because the future of our country depends on an informed citizenry, and you'd expect that we'd get it from universities. It's not happening even at Harvard.
Even Harvard, yeah. And you know that some big sponsors of Harvard, they withdrew their
That's true.
So now another interesting thing is happening that in Europe, in France, Germany, and a couple other countries, they forbade any demonstrations with support of Palestine. Any demonstration against Israel, immediately they're arrested, they're taken down, and so on. So this is very new approach because lately we believe that Europe is almost a capital of all the left opinions, especially younger people.
Well, Sasha, you know, it's
changing now.
Well, it's funny you say this because what I fear the most is that when countries either destroy each other or worse, divide themselves from within, that is the fertile breeding ground for fascism and authoritarianism.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what I'm worried about, that's the direction we're going in a more subtle form in the U.S., but still nonetheless. I also worry in the Middle East that we're going to have a war because Iran's going to get involved.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the movie Golda. I saw it. And there is a very interesting line that she was told that there will be outcries, there will be resolution of United Nations against Israel, and so on. And you know, she said to that, it's better to receive notes from United Nations than condolences to your killed people.
Right. It reminds me a little bit, and this is probably not a good analogy, but it reminds me of when we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We knew that if we went into a ground war, there would be 1 million, maybe 2 million lives lost, and they wouldn't surrender. And so you get to this tipping point where it's such an impasse, and the way it's resolved is one side destroys the other, and fascism rears its ugly head. And that, I think, is the biggest risk from this, from the way the world's going, and including the United States.
And I'm glad that U.S. sort of woke up a little bit because Sleepy Joe, he thought that he'll be blessed to live for another maybe 10, maybe even 20 years. Nothing horrible will happen at that time. He will have his hot milk before the night sleep, and he will just go by. But you know what? His last actions are not so bad. He sent this to avia carrier groups, and now he's on his way to Israel, and hopefully, maybe he's still able to do so.
And Adam, I had an interesting conversation actually earlier today with a dear friend of mine who actually has the same ethnicity as you do, Sasha. He is both a Ukrainian and Jewish, and it is a longtime friend. And he was actually saying that he was feeling a little bit conflicted in the discussion because he is actually a supporter of Palestinian rights and all along those lines. And he was also saying that he feels that sometimes that people are going to punch up if they are being punched down on, all in that space. So he is actually a person that grew up in a Jewish community in Florida and all along those lines, and he was actually given some sympathy to some of what Palestine has been going through, particularly those that are in the Gaza Strip. Like I said, it was right after I knew show. We had a very rich discussion, and all along those lines, we can get into details about it and all in that space. But like I said, he comes from some of your same background. He's a little bit younger, maybe in my age range, 50s or 60s and everything, but he definitely had some support in that community and all in that space.
Mark, I said on many programs, there are a lot of useful idiots in this world. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that somebody is a useful idiot just because they are supportive of a particular side. I mean, you would making some other statements that folks could say are very much.
If he could say something what you just told us, it means he is misinformed. And as a minimum, because probably he is just a liar. But I hope he's not.
Okay. Like I said, you don't know what his family is. Like I said, just told you he had the same background as you do and everything. And like I said, he was definitely very apology. I mean, he was very much understanding what was going on with the Israel side, because a lot of times Israel has had some very reactionary governments as well. I mean, that's part of what people say is that there's a conservative hardline government that is in Israel currently.
The same thing that, let's see, I danced with a girl and I stepped on her toes by accident. So she pulls a gun and hits and kills me right on the spot. There is so-called proportionate action. What Hamas did on October 7th, it's not only unproportionate, it's unthinkable, and this is something never happened in the history of the world. Now, interesting thing is that talk now is how Israeli, they have to, of course, reply. They cannot just say, okay, well, that happened, we're sorry. No, they have to reply. Now, their reply has to be measured. What means measured reply? That means that they have to, in Gaza, organize a musical festival and kill exactly, say, 250 people, same as the Hamas did kill Israelis on their.
I mean, if you want to believe in the eye for the eye philosophy or things along those lines, but not everybody believes in the eye for the eye philosophy, and there are some people, that will definitely want a neutral kind of view.
I will not allow you to talk while I'm talking. Okay, when I will finish, you will start. So now they have to calculate exactly how many Jewish women were raped on that day, how many children were abducted and killed and beheaded. Do exactly the same thing in Gaza, and then retreat and say, okay, that was a measured response. Would anybody agree with this type of measured response?
By that logic, Sasha, the African American community could do a whole lot of damage to the European American community based on the atrocities that were taking place during slavery and a number of other places as well. So by that logic doesn't make sense and everything. So I don't necessarily believe in the eye for the eye.
An American issue. It's not part of international politics. There are black people actually around the world. In Europe, a lot of black people. And in Europe, I never heard, I very often visit Europe and stay sometimes for a couple of months or so. Never, ever I see a uprising of black people there. We have in Canada a lot of black people. There is never issue with them. There is no uprising of black people in Canada. Never heard about, and probably you never heard about. So let's leave it alone.
No, it does exist. And if you read, there have been uprisings in Canada, just like there's been Black Lives Matter protests in Canada. So if you're saying that there weren't any, you are mistaken in that belief as well.
Well, I think there's one broader point that is important to make here is that, when we think back to Nazi Germany, okay, in the mid to late 30s and early 40s, you wonder how is it that an entire country could get behind Adolf Hitler and the policy that led to the extermination of 6 million Jews. I'll tell you what I think the reason is. Deprivation. They felt desperate and deprived. And as such, they followed like sheep with that towards Hitler. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because in the United States, we have the same problem. We have a false sense of deprivation among certain groups, because our universities are teaching people of certain groups that they're deprived, they're oppressed, they're marginalized, and they're victims. And that causes people to cluster into certain groups and hate other people. And it's on a smaller level the same thing, but it's a false sense of deprivation. And that's why our universities are so culpable, because what they're breeding is ultimately a recipe that's going to divide and ultimately destroy the United States.
My father said, this is Steve Brown. I'm sorry I'm late. I have another council meeting, but I just wanted to come in and say hi to everybody. And
Yes,
I think my father does the same thing about the universities. As a grandfather, he sees them kind of persuading one side over the other, and it's getting very divided even at that level. But what I'll just say today, what I wanted to just say real quickly before I leave, and I'll be back probably next week for the full week. The word I've been using a lot on shows in North Carolina is the United States a dysfunctional superpower? And when I say dysfunctional, it's pretty scary. I mean, we have no Speaker of the House, right? We cannot authorize aid to Israel or Ukraine. If we're looking weak to the rest of the world, and while this is going on, we're just more polarized than we have ever been before. So, I have never in my life lived in a time like this. And whatever today, Biden's visiting Israel, Blinken is meeting the head of Palestine. There's been really no indication that they're going to provide humanitarian aid. Ukraine, quite frankly, we've not even really talked about Ukraine the last few weeks because of what's going on in Israel. But I'm worried about Ukraine. What is going on there, right?
Don't worry about Ukraine. They already got ATACMS missiles, and they successfully used them yesterday, absolutely destroying Russian.
But the word is, are we? So I can't stay long, but Adam, and that's what I'd like you to talk about today. And how do we, for world politics, the question I want to answer next week is, how do we get ourselves out of this mess that we're in? How do we get ourselves back to a country that's working together, not agreeing on everything, but being the leader? Joe Biden, yesterday the president said, I know you're not a Biden fan, but he said, we're America on 60 Minutes. He says, we can do anything, but I don't know if people really believe that anymore.
Well, when you say I'm not a Biden fan, what I would say is this. I don't agree with his policies, but I have a lot in common with him, and that is I share common values with him. So if you want to dig yourself out of this mess, we have to realize that to coexist with different cultures, different people, to embrace diversity is a wonderful thing. But for it to work, we have to share common values across races, across ethnicities. Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to lead to destruction and division, which is the enemy of progress. And you're seeing that in Congress. You're seeing that at our universities, because what's broken down is the common core set of values that used to unite people of all races and lead to a society that was based on decency and liberty and compromise. And part of the reason why that foundation is broken down is because our universities are peddling doctrines that teach kids that they're victims, that they're oppressed, that they don't have a shot in life, that they're always going to be on an unequal playing field. That doesn't help them, and it doesn't help this country. What it does is it creates precisely the division that's created the hole that we can only dig out of through a shared common value system and good leaders.
Adam,
Kimberly, it's good to see you. That's my final insight for the day. I've got to run to a city meeting. Sorry I was late, but it's great to see Kim Calhoun, and I want to thank everyone for joining World Politics. Adam Lamparello, that was one of the best points I've ever heard you make. Accepting our differences, accepting our diversity, while at the same time focusing on core values we can all agree on. And I think it made Adam Lamparello said that he wants the president of the United States to be successful, even though he doesn't agree with his policy. But in order for the president to be successful, he's got to make an effort to have a team around him that's willing to. And I think that's the disconnect, Adam. I think the president doesn't have those people around him that are willing to have that conversation. And
yes,
which I find ironic, because as a U.S. Senator, Biden was a bipartisan guy working across the aisle, right?
Yes, he was. And also, back in those days, as far
as
I know, if I'm pro-life and someone else is pro-choice, I don't hate them. What I do is I celebrate our right to disagree. That's the common value. So Joe Biden and I could be friends with Biden, of course, and respect him, even though we disagree, because we have common values. That means we're both free to express our opinions and respect those opinions. And that common value system is what's lacking.
Okay. Thanks, folks. I'll be back probably on Friday and then next week. Sorry, it's just been a crazy week. Got an emergency council meeting. Going to go do the work of the people.
So is there any such thing as a neutral broker? Can we have a neutral broker, whether it's in Israel or in Palestine or in Ukraine and Russia?
A neutral broker? No. We're going to have exactly what we've had throughout history, the destruction of one side, and it's going to be the destruction of Hamas, because they cannot coexist because their common value systems are so different. And what Hamas did with their barbarism, it was animalistic, it was disgusting, and it's going to lead to the destruction of Hamas. No matter how many tunnels they have.
So, I think that Hamas has spent many years. They tried a while back to negotiate with Israel to find some peaceful links.
When remind me, when
Israel
Hamas did negotiate anything with Israel?
It's my turn.
Well, this is my next
believe,
question for you.
I believe that in history, it has shown that there's been a huge conflict between Israel and other countries. I have reason to believe that Israel has greased the palms of many of our politicians in campaigns and have paid for many of their campaigns and successes of campaigns and continues to pay them to support Israel. I believe that all of this has allowed Israel to continue to bully without any backlash, bully Gaza. Now, whatever Hamas is or is doing, I don't know. I don't know whether they really are terrorists. We have fake news saying they are terrorists. We have other people saying they're not. I feel like they stepped up to the plate to protect the people of Gaza. And they have been doing so. Maybe they're not. Maybe they've held the people of Gaza hostage. You know, everyone says that Israel were great because they came in and they gave a notice to Gaza and said, leave in the next 24 hours or you'll be killed. Well, you know, come on, people. If I told you leave your home in 24 hours or be dead, is that enough time for you to pack up everything you own, knowing that it's all going to be blown away and destroyed? No, this was a reason for Israel to continue doing the mass killings that they have been doing with the support of the world. That's all this has been. But if we look back in the past year, Israel has attacked on Gaza. They have done horrible things to Gaza. And I think Hamas kicked back with a few missiles. But Israel has over 170,000 people in their military, maybe plus a few more. Hamas only has about 40,000. It's not going to be an even war. Hamas should have never done anything to begin with. I don't think killing people either direction is the right answer. I think these guys need to grow a set of cojones and be real leaders, not killers. They need to sit down and find a means of peace. This has been going on far too long, and this is why they will continue to always end up killing each other. But I think we are wrong in supporting Israel, just as wrong as, you know, we haven't given any more support to Ukraine. We should have given more support to Ukraine than we do Israel. That's what I believe. I believe that this whole thing is a farce, and this was so Israel has more rights to go in. But to sit there and go, oh, they're great because they gave them 24 hours, that's not great. And Gaza, they are the innocent people in all of this. They're the ones that are caught between two egotistical leaders. Yeah, I think Israel's leader is egotistical. I think that they have been constantly badgering Gaza. And, you know, like Nick said, they're probably going to plow it over and turn it into a parking lot. I think Nick said that. And But I don't think that's right. I don't think that's a real leader. A real leader would go in and kill the people that did the terrorizing, just like we did when terrorists hit us in 9/11. We didn't just go wipe out a country. We went and specifically went after the person who hit us. And that's what should happen here. That's a real damn leader, people. That is a leader who goes in and takes out the real terrorists, not wipes out a whole country or a whole piece of land of innocent people. Where, right now Gaza has their hospitals, their children are being bombed and killed. Come on. Gross in a cojones, Israel. Quit paying off the senators here in America to support you. So, all right, I guess everybody's backing out, but that's how I feel. You guys can come back on now.
I was thrown out. I mean, so one thing I would say, Kim, is after that very passionate and inspiring speech is what you're saying is kind of like, imagine telling a battered wife that she has to try to reconcile with her husband. You are drawing a moral equivalency, okay, between what Hamas did and what Israel has done. I'm not saying they're both not culpable, but to say what you're basically saying, Israel is the battered wife, and Israel is the one that should be negotiating with the abuser. Because what Hamas did here, there's no moral equivalency. Hamas burned children alive, decapitated people, killed a family of 5 while they were holding each other in their arms, knowing that they would die. Okay? This was disgusting. And I don't think there's any moral equivalency. And when you talk about innocent people being in Gaza, it's extremely difficult for the Israelis to know who's innocent and who's not, because Hamas uses innocent people and families as human shields and infiltrates their homes. So I think you're right that we need leaders, but I think the best leader is one that says the days of Hamas need to be numbered, just like the abuser needs to be thrown in prison and the battered woman freed.
Well, and I agree with you in many ways. What Hamas did was extremely wrong, but we need to go after them, not blow up Gaza. Not sit there and tell Gaza you got 24 hours to pack your bags and leave. We need to go after them just like we did Osama bin Laden. We need to go after the terrorists. And we did it successfully. And you're right. They are holding Gaza people, a lot of innocent people, hostage and as shields. And I don't believe in, that's just collateral damage. I think that they need to step back, take a look at where the problem is, and shoot that problem, just like we did when we were attacked. We shot the problem. We didn't just go blow countries up. We didn't go knee jerk. We didn't but I have a problem with giving Israel 100% support when we know that they have been doing similar things to the people in Gaza over the years. I have a problem with that.
Well, I think that's a fair point, although I would disagree that there's a moral equivalency. I don't think what Israel has done to Hamas and Gaza is nearly as bad. I think Israel is the battered wife, and I think Hamas is the abuser. Israel tried to compromise with Palestine, with the Palestinians in 1994 when Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin met at the White House. They tried again in 2000 with, I believe it was Ehud Barak. They refused and keep refusing. So my question is, we have our different opinions, and that's all well and good, but at the end of the day, you talk about good leadership. Well, then how do we solve this problem? It's enough to problematize it. Yeah, it's all well and good, but how do we solve it? What is the answer? I would say a Palestinian state or the complete destruction of Hamas, because Hamas is dedicated to the destruction of Israel, and therefore coexistence is not possible. That would be my way out.
So Israel has said no to a Palestinian state. This has been discussed before. I think that you just need to let them both and let the Gaza people be alone. I think you need to go in and target the terrorists, just like we did. Again, that's the only way you're going to do this, and do it with less amount of collateral damage.
But how do you target the terrorists when they're intermingling with innocent people? Like it wasn't Vietnam.
How did we get Osama bin Laden? How did we get him? Yeah, we did. You wait patiently and you do it right. I mean, come on. Israel has 170,000 people in their military, Navy. Yeah, they probably have Navy SEALs, just like we do, that went in and did the job. So you need to let them take care of it and target shoot. That's why you have good target shooters. Okay. That's why you have military in high level intelligence training. You train them to go in and go after the right people, but you don't blow up whole countries, and you don't sit there and go, get your people out of here in 24 hours. That's not enough time. That's not enough time.
Well, Kim, if a battered woman was being abused by her husband, and that woman decided she's not only going to kill her husband, she's going to kill her husband's entire family, you can bet that the friends of that husband's family just aren't going to come after you. They're going to try to exact the same revenge in the same way, complete destruction. Because what Hamas has done here is so barbaric and out of proportion to their alleged grievances and their failures to compromise that you can't draw moral equivalence here. And I think that's where people would disagree with you. At least I would. I mean,
but I'm not disagreeing you about Hamas. I'm disagreeing about going in and blowing up all of Gaza and the people of Gaza.
If your family were killed, you'd probably kill that perpetrator's family. I don't think you'd target the killer.
If my family's killed, you won't know what I do.
Well, that's my point, though.
So, but here's the thing. A lot of people's families have been killed back and forth over the years. And this is something, just like family feuds that I mentioned in the very beginning of this is, they are going to be just, men will be men. They're going to fight, yell at each other, banter, bully each other, beat each other up. And when you cross that line one time, which probably happened tens of thousands of years ago, you will draw on a feud that will last for centuries. And that's what happened. So, and you'll see it distant. And I watched a Palestinian make a video, and I wish I had kept it, but it got deleted. But she was showing, when Israel slaps Palestinian around, the world goes, shh, don't say anything, be quiet, we're not going to do anything. But when, Israel goes in and continues slapping around, that's okay. But then when the Palestinians fight back, it's like, oh, shame on you. And we got to slap you around, So I think that there's been some inequality of what's been permissible. And I think that the media has misinterpreted what's been going on, because Israel has been beating up the Palestinians. They have. And I've heard Palestinians talk about this for quite some time. I think that there's two sides to this story. And again, you keep bringing up, a battered wife. We don't even take care of our own battered women in this country. So when you talk about, negotiating with her going back to her husband, normally she's forced to go back to the abusing husband. Okay. So even America can't get that part right, Adam. So until you can get that right here, really, we shouldn't be in the middle of this.
But we put the battered woman in prison for killing the husband. And that's exactly what Hamas is doing. They're not fighting back. They're terrorizing innocent people and children. It's disgusting.
Kim, I'd like to ask you a question.
Well, and that's
question.
And
Kim,
again,
can I ask you a question?
Right, that's disgusting.
Okay,
Hamas
can I ask you a question, Kim?
Yes, Sasha.
Kim, the view of what you just said just a few minutes ago, you said that it's wrong to support Israel. We have to support Palestinians and so on. Tell me, please, is it the view of your own or the POT TV network?
It's not just my view; it's many others who.
No. Yours and Pod TV, both or just yours or both? Just tell me that.
It's mine. Ask Nick what his
It's your
is.
own. Okay. So it's not Pod TV view, it's your own. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the view on that by United States and all leading European countries, all civilized countries? What's their view on this problem? Are you familiar with? You read papers, you watch TV. Are you like where you get your information?
I get my information. Also, I've been listening to the conservative news. And I get my information. I heard that Harvard has, a lot of people at Harvard has been supporting more of the Palestinians than they
And what
have.
is the result of their support of Palestinians?
Yeah, and
They're now looking for jobs and begging, please give us $10. We have no food to eat. And no prospective employer will ever hire these idiots. Okay, this is about Harvard protests. And it's not going to happen in just Harvard. It's going to happen in all university. All the left doctrine will be defeated soundly. Okay?
Sasha, somebody has to speak up for the victim. And
there
the
are no
victim are
victims.
the Palestinians.
No, the victims are Israelis. Innocent
Right.
1,400 people were killed without any fault of their own. So what are you crying for? Murderers? Are you crying for Palestinians who were dancing on the streets of Gaza when these murderers brought their abducted children, women, and they were dancing and screaming, and you are now trying to tell us to care about these people? There is not enough space in that little piece of land. There is not enough space to coexist for Israel and Hamas. Someone has to go.
I don't think
That's
that
it.
Israel is completely innocent.
I don't care.
Israel
is a strong man in that region. Have you ever heard about the so-called real politics? It's our friend, Professor Merschmeyer. He was teaching me about real politics. The politics goes like this, real politics. Okay, here's a big, strong country, Russia. Here is a small, not so big country, Ukraine. So Ukraine have to get up in the morning and say to Russia, Russia, how do you feel today? What would you like me to do? Would you like me to dance or maybe jump or do something what you'd like me to do? So the strong man in the real politics, he is one who makes the rules. In that region, it's been proven for 75 bloody years that the strong man is Israel. No one in that region can defeat Israel. So Israel offers, okay, when Israel took over all this land after 6-day war in 67, you know what they did wrong? They had to rule all this land. They should not give a little bit of here, something. They were offering to Egypt for many towns to take over Gaza.
Sasha,
take it, make it part
Sasha,
of
why is it?
Egypt
No,
says,
Sasha, why is
no one needs Palestinians, okay? They're all killers. The women have 10 kids, 12 kids. Why? Because they're future killers of Jews. This is why. How many kids do you have? Oh, I have 8. Oh, 8. I have 10. Oh, that one has 12.
So
This
you
is
think
all what this is about.
Palestinians are killers of
Oh,
Jews?
they didn't have
All of them. Or
Connecticut.
future killers.
All of them.
All of
I
them.
don't think so, Sasha.
Absolutely.
I don't think so. We've had some on the show.
Israel is
On the
killer of
streets
Palestinians.
celebrating.
I had
killed
no
Jews.
idea there was such sexual promiscuity in the Gaza Strip.
What else they do? No work, no
Hey,
business,
kids.
no education, nothing. All they do, they are just procreate 24 hours a day. There is nothing else to do.
Love is much more than sex.
No, they don't do that in Israel. They don't do that in Israel as well.
Sasha, I think that I know a few people who have suffered and struggled at the hands of Israel. I've heard their stories. I've been reading them. I think that the U.S. Turns their heads when Israel does things to Palestinians I think Israel is a killer of Palestinians.
Israel is a strong man. There are no rules. Israel now will go and destroy all Palestine,
They will.
all
They will go and
Gaza,
destroy
everything.
them
There
with
will be
your
no, you know
support.
what? I'll tell you
But
what.
there's
Gaza will become an inhabitable land. There will not be possible to live after what Israel is going to do there. It's it for the next 1,000 years. Nobody will live in that place. So the
I don't
lesson
know
is
why
being
anyone
learned.
wants
So,
to live
Sasha,
near Israel to begin
Real
with.
hold on
politics,
a second.
remember.
I personally don't know why
Sasha,
anyone
hold on a
would want
second,
to
because I know
live
we're
next
winding
to
down.
Israel to begin with. They are horrible. They beat up everyone that they meet. They're bullies. They pay their way into the U.S. government. They line the pockets of the U.S. government.
They are strong.
So that
This
they
is
can
the right of a strong man. When you are strong, you
Listen to
dictate the
mafia.
rules. Period. There is nothing you can do.
The
If
hand that
if
rocks
there
the
is a
cradle
strong
is the
man,
one that
a
rules
weak
the
man,
Are they making the rules?
What was that, Adam?
Are they
I said
making
the
the rules? Or
hand
are the
that
rules being made because?
I said the hand that rocks the cradle is the one that rules the world.
Was that Rock or Rob?
Rock.
Hi, Nick. What have you got to say about all of this?
I'm at the airport in Raleigh.
or
Well,
flying to Israel.
yeah, I'm got a flight to Tel Aviv
Good.
pretty shortly, so I can report directly from the Gaza Strip. It's going to take me a while to get there, but you know,
Go to Reykjavik.
1,000 miles.
I wouldn't go to Gaza.
Why not? I hear that's where the action is. Why not go to Gaza?
There's not going to be a Gaza left.
Oh, well, maybe I'll get some real estate. Who knows?
There you go.
You know. Well, the thing
Are
is,
you going to take
well,
Sasha with you, and are you going to meet with members of the PLO while you're there?
yeah, I think so. I think we're going to get a settlement while we're over there.
I'm sorry,
So-
there is no such thing as PLO these days.
Okay, yeah,
Single fast.
we're going on a
There's FATCA, but not PLO.
we're going on a peacekeeping mission. We're going to bring some peacekeepers with us and see if we can get some rule of
If you
law.
want to effectuate peace, where you should be going is Libya. How horrible it was that they deposed Muammar Gaddafi and destabilized that country.
Depose Muammar Gaddafi. I thought they killed Muammar Gaddafi.
Even worse. If you want to
Yeah.
go somewhere to find peace, go to Libya. The people need you.
How
Yeah,
much money do you have? I don't think you have enough money to line the pockets.
yeah. Well, you know, we're gonna grease some people over there and see if we can get this thing all taken care of and settled.
Create
Well,
a
it'll
chess
take-
tournament. You'll make millions.
Well,
What?
Nick, have you prepared your will?
I heard that a couple of the
I'm in the United States of
sponsors
America,
or-
the most dangerous
Hey,
country.
Adam, along those same lines, hey, Adam,
What was that, Mark?
There's the airport.
Mark is having a hard time. Mark, what was that?
I was saying along those same lines, I heard something very, yeah. I was saying I heard something that Adam might be interested in along those same lines because there was a report today that President Trump has said that he is willing to go to jail and all along those lines. So are you ready for the president to be coming from the jail cells? Because I did hear that earlier today, that he said that he is willing to go to jail over these charges that he is facing and everything. So are we ready to have a presidency from the jail cell?
He's not going to prison. 3 of the 4 indictments are either going to be dismissed or overturned on appeal, and the other one in Florida does not warrant jail time. He's saying it for political purposes to, rally his base.
But why are we even talking about
Persecution
him?
against
He's not
Trump
even-
has to
Thank
end.
you, Adam. He's doing this for a free advertisement. Love it.
Exactly.
Because of all the simple minds out there that stir it up and love the drama.
Let me tell you guys, all I need is just a little momentum, and then a little phrase like "I still believe in a place called hope," and you will see me go to the White House.
Well, I will help you get there.
Please do. I could have used your help, certainly. Thank you.
Wouldn't you like to be a
I will
speaker?
say this: I would like to
No.
see him stop taking campaign money from other countries. I think that's the first thing that we need to do. Is that way we're not going to be prejudiced in who we support and don't support.
The only money that I would take would be from Russia.
Hey,
Exactly.
Sasha, well, actually, Nick, the other thing that I heard,
You know, last
The other
time,
thing
guys,
that-
Hey, Mark, last time I was in Washington, D.C., I'm going to go back there next month. There was a for sale sign. They're having real estate for sale. And then I noticed the for sale sign was actually on the White House and the Congress building. So as we well know, that's the United States of America. Everything's for sale, including your local congressman.
Nick, you didn't hear the latest news? The latest news
What?
was that apparently Amy Coney Barrett has said that she wants a ethics code at the Supreme Court. So maybe we're going to have ethics at the Supreme Court, because that was the other thing that I saw earlier today that was politically motivated, was that she said she wants a ethics committee on the Supreme Court. So are we going to have some ethics coming from the Supreme Court and from the House? Because she's saying she wants a ethics rule that they have to follow a certain ethics policy.
Well, that would be a novel idea, you know. But sooner or later, you're going to have to get money out of D.C., because right now all the money's flowing into D.C. And the political action committees, really, they control the Congress. They control the Senate, and they control the presidency. So I don't know why you guys are all bothering to vote. What you should do is all join political action committees.
He's
They're the ones that
100% right.
You
Get
know,
the money
that's,
together, baby.
that's where all the money is. And by the way, I just want to remind everyone, don't forget, this is Pink Month. So donate, save some lives. We're at the top of the hour, and I want to thank everyone for their support and giving us their information, sharing their ideas, and maybe we'll find some solutions, not just for the United States, but finding peace in the whole world. And Nick, travel safe. Take care.
How's Vidania?
Right?
On my way to the Gaza Strip. We'll see you guys.
Thank you
We'll
all.
see you soon.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci. Take care, everybody.
It's hard to hear you. And I think I chose the network St. Joseph and not St. Joseph's Death.
Yes.